Hello, I'm Reverend Scott Wipperman, pastor here at First Presbyterian Church in Helena, Montana, and we welcome you to our worship service today. I'd like you to know that regardless of who you are or where you are in your journey of faith, you're welcome here at First Presbyterian Church.
If I could take just a moment of personal privilege, it is such a joy to be here with you all. It's always such a treat to come to Helena and be with you. And it's an extra treat because your fabulous Pastor Scott is here too. That hardly ever happens when I come. So it's like such a joy to be here and to have Scott here too. It's just so great. And I bring you greetings from the other 17 congregations in our presbytery. And they're praying for you this morning, just as you are praying for them. So greetings from around our presbytery. Our gospel reading today comes from Luke 8, 4 through 8. And in it, you'll see it says farmer. I'm going to substitute sower. And some translations use the word sower there. So I'm going to translate that. While a large crowd was gathering and people were coming to Jesus from town after town, he told this parable. A sower went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path and was trampled on, and the birds ate it up. Some fell on rocky ground, and when it came up, the plants withered because they had no moisture. Other seed fell among the thorns, which grew up with it and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil, and it came up and yielded a crop 100 times more than was sown. When he said this parable, he called out, "Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear." Today we're talking about the sower that goes out and he sows his seed. And to give it a little context, this is a sermon that Jesus gave to the multitude. Jesus himself told them this parable. So it must have been something that was really important for Jesus to have them hear, something that he desperately wanted them to take to heart. The sower goes out. And normally when we hear this sermon, we concentrate on the soil. Or is it rock, or are there thorns, or what's happening with the soil? In fact, in some places, it's called the parable of the soils. And that's a good way to think about this sermon. But today we're going to think about it in a little different way. In fact, we're going to only concentrate on 4 words of this parable. A sower went out. So what do we know about this sower? What do we know from what Jesus said? And it's not a lot, is it? We don't know if the sower was old or young. We don't know if the sower was wealthy or poor. We don't know if the sower was experienced or not experienced. We don't know any of those things about the sower. And so we can conclude nothing about what the sower was like, except that the sower went out. The sower had some choices here. The sower could have stayed in the silo or the granary, could have stayed there where it was safe, just counting the seeds or maybe hoarding the seeds or not wanting to throw the seeds around. But the sower didn't do that. The sower went out. The other thing we can conclude from this is that the sower was not very careful, was he? He's throwing the seeds, just throwing them. He's not very careful. He could have looked on the ground and found the best soil right there, That's where I should plant these seeds. This is the good soil. And this has enough sun, but doesn't get the afternoon sun. It'll get some rain. I'll nourish this little part of where the seed goes. But no, the sower doesn't do anything like that. The sower just takes the seed and it goes like this, and it's just everywhere on rocks and in thorns and everywhere. But that doesn't seem to bother the sower at all. The sower knows that where it's planted, when it's good soil, it's going to grow. And the sower seems to understand that it's God's work to grow up what's coming from the seed. It's the sower's work to spread the seed out. So what do we take from this? This is an unusual thing to think about. This is a call to action from Jesus. And action, I mean real action. This is a call to action from Jesus to be out in the world, sowing Jesus' love everywhere. It's not our job to decide if this is good ground or not good ground. That's God's job. It's our job to be out there sowing it. I want to give you an example. Some of you know about this. I want to give you an example that comes from Kalispell, from our congregation in Kalispell. There was a man, he was not a part of the congregation. His name was, still is, J.D., and he wandered around Kalispell and he looked at the signs and they said, no skateboarders. Do not skateboard here. Do not skateboard here. Do not skateboard here. No skateboarders. No, 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 no. You're not welcome. We don't want you. And J.D. didn't have a theology degree. He hadn't been to seminary. He's just a regular guy. And he saw that and he wondered about the skateboarders. And he wondered if they had heard about Jesus. He wondered this, and he thought, what can I do? What can I do? He did not skateboard. So what he did is he went to the skate park with cold water. And he was there with glasses of cold water for the skateboarders who were at the park. And he said, if you want some cold water, come over and get some cold water. And he asked them if they'd heard about Jesus and just share a little bit about Jesus loving them. And pretty soon, more and more skateboarders were coming over for that cold water, coming over to be a part of that. To know that they were loved was something that was fairly unusual in this population. So after a while, J.D. said, well, what we need to do is connect these kids more with the churches. And so he asked the churches in Kalispell if on Friday nights the skateboarders could come and skate in their parking lots. Nothing was going on in the church parking lots on Friday nights. So they said, yes. Many of the churches in Kalispell said, yes, come and use our parking lots. You can skate here in our parking lots. And they came and they set up their ramps and they skateboarded in the parking lots of the churches. And our congregation in Kalispell said, well, we've got these skateboarders skating in our parking lot on Friday night. Let's feed them dinner. So they did. They started feeding them dinner on Friday night. And the people that were there to feed them dinner would watch them do their tricks on their ramps and with their skateboards, and they'd applaud for them. And this was something also that was fairly unusual for some of these kids, to have grown-ups that valued what they did, that saw skateboarding as something that required skill and imagination. And so it moved on from there, and of course they're in the summer and they're doing the skateboarding, but summer doesn't last forever in Montana. So winter came and they had no place to skateboard. So the Presbyterian Church gave them a 1001 New Worshiping Communities grant so that they could be inside skating in the winter. And they continued to skate, and the pastors in Kalispell came alongside them to nurture them. But still, it was a very fragile faith community. And they were just about to give up. It didn't seem sustainable. The skateboarders themselves had no money. There was no way to get money to keep this place where they were skating. And they have a group that's like a session. It's not a session, but it's like a session. And finally, the very day that they were making the decision, it tears me up every time, to close. So we have to close. We can't keep going. We don't have the money. We don't know where to get the money. On that very day, they got their second grant from the Presbyterian Church, 1001 New Worshiping Communities. And they're in this warehouse now. They're called Serious Juju. I'm going to tell you about the name in a second. They're in this warehouse, and it's a desperate warehouse, I'll tell you what. You can actually look out and see the sky in places. But they love it. It's their place. And they come on Friday night, and they hear the Word of God, and they skate, and they get a good dinner. And there's a lawyer in the congregation that's teaching them how to play chess. And there's a woman in the congregation that's teaching them how to sew on buttons. And they are thriving because the sower went out. Because JD went out with cold water. All of this has happened. In February, when we had our Presbyterian retreat, we got to worship with Serious Juju, and it was pretty amazing. I'll tell you about their name now. Juju, I don't claim to understand skateboarding too well, but juju is apparently, if something goes well, it's good juju. If something goes bad, it's bad juju. But Jesus is serious juju. And that's where their name came from. Serious juju. So we worshiped with them at the Presbyterian retreat, and some of the kids and the young adults got up, and they were sharing their favorite Bible verse with us. And they had different verses, and one young man got up and he said, well, my favorite verse is John 3:16. And all of us experienced Christians went, yeah, that is a great verse. I'm glad you chose that verse. And then he read it to us. And this was clearly new information for him. That God so loved the world that God even loved him. This was new information, and he wanted to share it with us. It was phenomenal. It was breathtaking. And he shared it with us. God so loved the world. Now, this young man has very difficult home life. He lives in 2 RVs that somehow have like a flap over the top of them or something. That's his home life. He was so excited to come to the camp, not because we had a great program or something wonderful was going on. He came to the camp so he could have a hot shower, because he doesn't get hot showers at home. But God so loved the world, and God so loved us, and he wanted us to know that. He wanted to share that with us. It was an amazing, amazing experience. And now Serious Juju from February even has grown more. And the parents are starting to come. They're starting to have a Bible study for fathers. And during the 4th of July parade, Serious Juju was in the parade on their skateboard, and they were handing out little bags of candy that told about Serious Juju, told where and when they meet. And the Friday after the 4th of July, there were 11 more kids coming because the sower went out. Because J.D. risked being out there with his cold water, not knowing what was going to happen, not knowing if it was going to be effective or not effective, not knowing if it was even needed or wanted. But the sower went out, not caring about any of that. He went out with his cold water. They're going to have some baptisms coming up, Serious Juju. It sounds like maybe 20 baptisms. It's incredible what's going on there. And now you see how this has happened. JD went out with the cold water. He was the sower. It grew and blossomed. And now the Serious Juju kids, they're the sowers. They're going out to their family, to their friends. But it happened because JD risked. Because he didn't know, but he cared. And he risked. So what does that say to us as Christians today? What do we take from this parable that Jesus told the multitude? Sometimes I think we are very cautious Christians. Sometimes I think we share the good news of Jesus only with people that we know will be receptive, not risking to be shunned or put aside. We share our resources only where we know they're going to be successful, not daring to risk something different, something new, something unexpected. This is a call to action for us from Jesus himself. The sower went out, Jesus said. The sower didn't stay inside. The sower didn't walk away. The sower went out. And Jesus expects us to do that too. And it's very inconvenient sometimes, isn't it? It's very uncomfortable sometimes. It's very costly sometimes. But that doesn't get us off the hook. Because Jesus said, the sower went out. There's a theologian, William Shedd, who happens to be Presbyterian way back. And he said that a ship is safe in the harbor. But that's not what ships are for. So when we play it safe, when we're safe here in our harbor, that's where we're safe and where it's comfortable, but that's not what we're for. We're to be out there in the world. This is a call to action. Feet go, hands work, mouth praises. This is a call to action from us all today from Jesus. Amen.